This was not a fluke. What we just witnessed was the part of the left that has been pushed into the shadows by the Democratic Party's paternalistic insistence on sliding towards the center, finally stepping into the light. And now we see each other. And with this moment of heightened political and class consciousness, it becomes our responsibility to drive our vision of the future to the front lines of power. This is just one vicious little ulcer in the belly of the beast, but it's created a fatal wound from which we will tear the whole thing open. In order to do that, though, we all have to learn from this victory. So, how did a 33-year-old democratic socialist, pro-Palestine Muslim immigrant who took almost no large donations defeat a deeply established white Zionist who beat the battered drum of public safety and had corporate billionaire support in an election within the gravitational center of capitalism itself? Well, despite being practically unknown outside of Queens prior to this year, Zohran ran a near flawless campaign from start to finish. It was like Mahomes' first starting season on the Chiefs. Zohran and his team have made so many good decisions that I just can't talk about them all now, so I'll boil it down to what I think are the most important few. 1. Present a clear platform on how you're going to make life easier for everyone. You've probably heard or read the slogans, freeze the rent, make buses fast and free, provide free childcare, etc. Instead of simply echoing popular concerns and vowing to wave his hands and make them go bye-bye, Zohran chose the Bernie model of promising bold, specific solutions. Most people care about more or less the same issues. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Answer that question. 2. Talk to everyone, listen to everyone. Zohran went on every podcast, did every interview, spoke at every community event, visited every borough, and topped it all off by walking the length of Manhattan overnight to speak with passersby. If you listen to him speak to people, you won't just hear a pitch, you'll hear a conversation. He actually discusses and grapples with the criticisms each of his policies receive. For instance, every centrist Democrat in the media asks him, when you raise the corporate and highest income bracket tax rates, won't rich people just leave the city? And every time he tells those people, without missing a beat, that the wealthy leave the city at a quarter of the rate everyone else leaves. And when they do so, they go to high tax states like New Jersey and California anyways. He is continually asked about his previous calls to defund the police, which is unpopular in a city whose current mayor is literally a cop. Every time, Zohran responds by saying that he will not defund or shrink the police, but that he'll create what he calls the Department of Community Safety to take the burden of addressing mental health issues off of the shoulders of cops. This is not an original idea. It's a nationally popular one that's been gaining traction across the country ever since the BLM movement of 2020. Not only is he ready to assuage every concern, but he's ready to connect with and be liked by harder-to-reach demographics, which for him includes Jews, black people, and moderate Dems, to name a few, by appealing to their liberal ideals and their very own icons. Often smeared for opposing the genocide in Gaza, Zohran defends himself by quoting prominent Israeli historians as well as former Prime Minister of Israel Ehud Olmert, who recently lamented that what we are doing in Gaza is a war of devastation, limitless, indiscriminate, cruel, and criminal killing of civilians. During a meeting with influential black New Yorkers, including Reverend Al Sharpton, Zohran addressed the self-handicapping notion that the Democratic Party needs to move further to the center in order to hold ground against the country's rightward slide, and quoted the Reverend to his face, saying, "There are those in the Democratic Party who have driven the party further and further to the right in the name of a winning strategy, and it seems that it is their presumption that the only way to be electable is that progressive forces and people of color must voluntarily turn into invisible people." When faced with fears of socialism, he frequently quotes MLK, someone who is by no accident not very well known for his politics beyond race, in saying, "Call it a democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a redistribution of wealth in this country." Cuomo, on the other hand, because he had so much to be ashamed of and so little to stand for, did none of this. He simply stood still to quote The Onion on Democratic leadership in general, in the hopes that no one would notice him. 3. Be whip smart, young, ideally attractive, and tap the fuck in. This one speaks for itself, honestly. 4. Reject Zionism, support Palestine. Zohran went viral during the first mayoral primary debate for his groundbreaking declaration that he wouldn't be interested in French kissing the Western Wall were he to be elected. But his pro-Palestinian support runs much deeper than this one moment. He has called for the US to finally align itself with international law. In particular, he has said that as mayor, he would order the arrest of Netanyahu were he to come to New York, which he frequently has under previous mayors during trips to the UN. In October of 2023, Zohran was arrested for disorderly conduct while participating in a protest outside the apartment of Chuck Schumer, demanding that the staunchly Zionist senator call for a ceasefire in Gaza. As a Queens assemblyman, he sponsored the Not on Our Dime bill, which aims at curbing New York financial support for illegal Israeli settlements by empowering the state attorney general to, quote, dissolve any nonprofit organization found to be using tax-deductible donations to support organizations that aid in the occupation of the Palestinian West Bank. People are tired of being told that their very eyes lie to them. So much so that even in the largest population center for Jews outside of Tel Aviv, a proud anti-Zionist is on track to become mayor. 5. Build an army of young people with an expertly run social media campaign full of hope and righteous anger. Earlier this year, I saw a video of this dude in a suit walking around Harlem, waving his hands, talking about freezing the rent, sticking it to billionaires, and rooting for the Knicks. And I was cooked. 50,000 other New York lefties had the same experience, and as a result, we knocked 1.5 million doors and made over 2 million phone calls. Which brings me to my 6th and final point. Knock every door. I can't tell you how many people there were with whom we spoke that didn't even know who Cuomo was running against. But after one conversation, not only did those same people know the name Zohran, almost every one of them either said they'd rank him or at least that they liked what they'd heard. My best luck actually came from talking to dudes just chilling on their stoops listening to music with their friends after work. One single canvasser can earn dozens of votes within a few trips around their neighborhood. So seek out the non-voters. Seek out the people who care but aren't paying attention. Seek out the people who only plan to vote based on name recognition because they just don't know what else is out there. I'm sure I'm missing something, but like I said, if Zohran hadn't made so many good decisions, this would have been an easier video to make. I hope even one person watches this and comes away from it with a better understanding of how to shape the future of the Democratic Party. And I hope that that same person, you, will go shame your elected officials for accepting dirty money. I hope you'll fight for ranked choice voting in local elections. I hope that you'll join DSA. And most importantly, I hope that when the time is right, you'll run for something. We are so far from powerless. We just have to realize it.